Welcome to the SDA Housing Podcast, brought to you by NDIS Property Australia. Before starting this episode, we need to provide a general disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast is general in nature only. It does not take into account the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. You need to consider your financial situation and needs before making any decisions based on the information in this podcast. And you should consider seeking independent and professional advice for your personal circumstances. All right, let's begin.
Hello everybody, my name is Minh and I'm your co-host for today with Debbie, Matthew and Eryn from the SDA Housing Podcast. And today is a special podcast. It is our 100th episode. Welcome all.
Yay! Welcome.
Welcome. Debbie, lead the way.
Yeah, so we're so excited. We can't believe we've got to 100 episodes already. It's been almost a year since we started to the day.
2 more weeks, it'll be a full year, Debbie.
Yeah. So we thought we'd take this opportunity to review our year of podcasts, our highlights, our top episodes, our favourite guests, and just, an overview of what we've achieved so far and what we're looking forward to with our next year of podcast episodes. So I guess let's firstly summarise why we started the podcast.
I think because, Debbie, as you may recall, we had a lot of inquiries coming in the last 2 years, and it was hard for us to handle all the workload of the inquiries of people asking, how does SDA work? How does it work with investment property, providers, participants, and all that kind of stuff? And it was just really overwhelming for us, and unless we got more and more staff to handle the workload, I guess, Debbie, and call it complacency or being lazy, but I think it's become very efficient for us to put our thoughts and our advice on a online platform like Spotify and Amazon and whatnot, and Google Radio, and it's worked to our advantage, Debbie, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. We have had a lot of people coming to us stating that they've listened to episodes, they are getting a lot of information, a lot of value out of them. We've also been able to use it for specific information, just putting it out there, all sorts of different aspects of SDA housing investment.
I would say also it's been useful in kind of bringing in different stakeholders and people who play a part in the SDA and NDIS wider industry, and a lot of people who might just come from one corner might not be aware of other players and other things to be aware of and other groups that they should be if they're getting involved in this space.
But also, Debbie, I think having guest speakers on who give their advice validates what we've been saying, because, it would be quite normal for someone to say, well, where's the source of your information? Prove to us that this data is correct. And I think having guest speakers who are specialists in the area of SDA being interviewed on our podcast allows us to redirect clients and listeners to certain topics that are recorded to validate everything we're saying.
Yeah, for sure. So, well, let's move on to the top episodes that we've had throughout the year. Eryn, do you want to let us know which ones have been the most listened to?
Yeah, so our top listened episode, which is actually approaching, I'm pretty sure, 1,000 downloads by itself, is episode 20, which is an update on Queen's Gardens. It's a development that we have. The second is episode number 1, which was our introduction to who we are and the podcast and what it's all about. Number 3 is episode 2, which is 4 different approaches to investing in SDA. Number 4 is episode 3, which is SDA statistics and data part 1. And number 5 is episode 4, which is SDA in Melbourne and the robust category.
Interesting. So I guess that leads into the highlights of the, obviously people are starting off listening to those podcasts, but then it gets a bit more specific with what they want to listen to beyond that. with having now 100 episodes to choose from to listen to if they're not going to go through one by one and listen to all of them. Obviously, we understand that not every episode is going to be relevant or interesting to everybody. You can't please everyone all the time. But what, from our perspective, I guess, are the standout episodes? Min?
I think the standout episode for myself was episode 4, when I flew down to Melbourne and we didn't have any equipment. I just had my iPhone on a glass cup, and Rob, Maxwell and I would just huddle over this little iPhone, just talking on the fly about Robust and the Melbourne market. And it was a very good episode. I really loved doing it with Rob. It just gave us a bit of a peek into the wider market in Victoria. His thoughts on the property market itself. And it just told me, look, if we want to take this on another level with regards to the podcast, speakers and from different parts of the country and different topics, we had to up our game with regard to flying around the country more and have a professional equipment in the office and to be able to take it with us on the road, just to gather our network of speakers for the podcast channel. That was for my highlight, just that moment realising that this could be a fun exercise for us for the rest of the year moving forwards for the channel.
Yeah, definitely. So who've been our favourite or our regular repeat speakers?
What about your thoughts?
My thoughts
your favourite episode, Debbie.
I loved the first one. When I heard that first recording, I thought, oh my, wow, this could be fantastic. How much fun is this? Yeah. From the start, I was blown away.
So the number 1 was your favourite?
I wouldn't say it's my favourite. It was the one that highlighted out for me what this could be, what this could achieve.
Matt, what are your thoughts, Matt?
So I'd probably say I've got to toot my own horn a bit. We did an episode, SDA 101, and I, on that episode, go into a lot of detail about things to be aware of in SDA, and I feel as it's not the introductory episode for the podcast, but it is a very good introduction to the way SDA works in a broader sense. So I thought that was great. I also super enjoyed the episode that me and Eryn did where we interviewed David. He was an excellent guest on our show, and he went very much into a lot of detail about why he's looking at SDA, why he chose SDA moving forward. And I found that super informative from the perspective of an investor, I suppose,
Eryn?
I have a few favourites. Can
I guess one of them?
Yeah.
Peter Hook.
Correct. She was one of my favourites.
Yes.
Peter and Zoe Simmons are two of my favourites. They're amazing women and they're doing amazing things in the disability space. They're incredible, and I can't recommend their episodes enough. And looking at their profiles and learning about them, I think they're both incredible. The MS Queensland episode, because that's something that's very close to my heart and very personal for me. And I've now forgotten my fourth one. Oh, Tom Melbourne. I think that they're amazing and they do incredible things as well. And I think that more people should know about them. So they're my highlights and my favourite speakers, I guess, as well.
Yeah. So beyond the original episode being a highlight for me, from where I could see the potential of where this could go, I guess my favourite episodes were, I loved the one that you guys did. I was not here at the time. The SDA trivia episode, that was a lot of fun.
That was so fun.
And the one that I thought was fun to record was actually the one we did in Hobart at the SDA conference.
Ooh, that was a hard one.
It was hard, but it was good, and it turned out actually a lot better than I think we all expected. I also really enjoyed to listen to the episodes for the knowledge, I guess, and I'm coming from an information, data, statistics perspective. I loved the episodes that we have with Access Living in Melbourne, Sedana in Perth, Adapt Housing, David Whitelaw. So all of those I think are great, as well as, of course, the ones that we've had with some of the participants. Like we've also got Brendan Wolf. Yeah. And investors, I think those are great. Standout. episodes with other...
Can I jump in? Brendan Wolf, who's an advocate, he reached out to us in November or December.
Yep.
And he asked Luba, and Eryn's away on that day, but he asked Luba, well, can I come in? Should we do a follow-up episode on my podcast about my situation with the AAT? And I told Luba to ask him, well, has anything changed? And he said no. I said, well, why do interview? There's nothing changed. We still wait for an outcome. But the moment, Brendan, if you're listening, Brendan, the moment you get a positive outcome or any outcome, we want to hear your story, part 2 of your fight for the right to SDA funding that you need for yourself, Brendan.
Yeah. So I guess that brings us to what we want to see more of on the podcast. From my perspective, definitely interviews with people with lived experience. I think that is so valuable for our investors to understand from that perspective what they need.
I agree. And Eryn, correct me if I'm wrong, but I look at the download averages on all the episodes. Mm-hmm. The ones which are SDA and investment focused, there's a lot of downloads on those ones. Mm-hmm. But yet the other ones which are non-property related, like experiences of advocates and people who are disabled, those numbers could be a little bit more downloaded from our listener base.
Yeah, we're averaging about 100 per episode, I'm pretty sure, but that's an overall average. But yeah, I think the ones that people will look at the title and assume that it's not really relevant. But I think if you listen to it, you'll know why we've chosen to talk to these people, because it is really relevant.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and so many episodes are with infrastructure service providers. Another of my favourites was Home Guardian. I was blown away by their product. So there's a lot of episodes out there that may not initially look interesting, but yeah, have a read of the episode description and give it a go. You know, you might learn something really interesting that will change your view of what you need to consider with an investment.
The best way for an investor or listener to understand and think with an open mind, put themselves in the shoes of another person who's a participant, who has funding or is seeking funding, is just to understand their life, understand their struggles, understand their challenges in living everyday life as a participant in the NDIS, with or without SDA funding. I think, you know, we don't put these episodes willy-nilly. There's a reason why we invite these guest speakers to be interviewed, and that is to help our listeners to understand more of what goes on behind the scenes. You know, one of our episodes in our channel is Ever Homes, talks about thin markets, SDA numbers and stats in the thin market, being the regional areas and rural areas. So, you know, there's always a lot of information in all the episodes we produce, and we hope that our listeners each month can hear more and more content that is applicable to themselves.
Yeah. So back to the guest speakers that we've had. I think we've had in total, how many guest speakers?
35.
Which is pretty good for 100 episodes, 30%.
Mm-hmm. And that's 35 guest speakers, but there's not been 35 guest episodes. There's been repeat guest speakers.
Okay. So more than 30% have been with guests. So, and the rest of them have been basically our in-house episodes that we've recorded about data, about information, about current happenings.
Shout out to Rob Maxwell from Melbourne, who's done about 4 or 5 episodes with us. Angad Singh from Perth, who've done 4 as well. And Adapt Housing, both Dante, done 2, and David Whitelaw, done 2, who've supported us in our channel and lent their advice and expertise in working with us on the podcast here.
So, Eryn, back to some stats. How many downloads have we actually had in total?
As of when I checked just before we started recording this, 12,212.
Wow. So what are we getting monthly on average?
Approximately 1,300.
Pretty good. So, and you've already said that our average downloads per episode is about 100.
Yeah.
Which is great. And just to reiterate, I guess the podcast, we're rolling out 2 episodes a week. That we try to have it as one
internal, one external. External being like a guest
with a guest.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, we've just started our new SDA Unlocked sub-series with 1 episode the last Tuesday or Friday of the month.
So last day?
The last Tuesday of the month.
Last Tuesday of the month, right, okay.
I'm really excited for that one, Debbie. It's going to be all about you and your knowledge and your experience and your forecast for certain regions around Australia. It'll be good for our listeners to hear your thoughts on different parts of the country. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I mean, that's me. I love the stats. I love the data. So it's fun. I really enjoy the research and getting deep into it and finding out why an area is good or why it's not so good.
Debbie, have you come across any of our listeners or clients who are really across the board with research and stats?
Yeah, I have. There are more of our clients coming to us saying that they've done a lot of research. They've looked at what we've got on our website or what we're talking about in the podcast, and they've gone away and double checked that data and agree with us. They can see where we're coming from, and where we're telling it as it is. We're not hiding anything. People are starting to realise that it's worth their while going out, looking at the data themselves, and that's what we always recommend people to do. So it's definitely becoming something I'm hearing more of.
That's good.
It is indeed. So, wrapping up this overview of the podcast. You want to add anything else?
I'm just really excited, Debbie. I mean, last year, 2022, we were sort of just feeling our way, figuring out how to do this and what topics, and now we have momentum. We are doing 2 per week minimum, and 1 per month with you as SDA Unlocked. We have speakers lined up. In fact, Eryn says we're probably up to February, March now. So April. So we're now, right now is start of February. So we're out far to April. So that's how much we got lined up in the pipeline to be published. So recorded but not published. Yeah. So I'm really excited about that. I'd like to see more guest speakers who are providers, both SIL providers and SDA providers, definitely there. Mm-hmm. What you'll see with our guest speakers who are different providers around Australia is they provide a different element of experience from the Melbourne or Perth or Queensland market. It's always interesting to see their feedback on how they're seeing things on the ground where they are. That's all. Yeah. Debbie, what do you want to see more of, Debbie?
Definitely. That's, as I said before, more of the lived experience guests, but also, you're right, the providers. We had a meeting yesterday with a provider from Melbourne, and he was just telling us a little bit of information. I said to him, can I quote you on that? Better yet, can I get you on a podcast episode? Because that is such valuable information.
And what information was he telling you?
He was telling us about the fact that IL improved livability participants. A lot of them would fall into the Down syndrome category. They often in later life will start developing foot problems, which will push them into the FA category. And therefore, if those participants move into a fully accessible or even a high physical support home, as their physical condition deteriorates, they don't need to move because they're already in a home that will support that.
And he said the word was degenerative, right?
Degenerative, yeah. So, I mean, I already knew that, but I didn't know what category or what disabilities that might be more common with. So,
and I want to go back to Eryn. The reason why we did the MS episode many months ago was we worked out that MS may be a normal light disability at the moment, but it's degenerative, whereby later in life, many years down the track, they could end up being in a wheelchair. So, again, there's a reason why we put these episodes on, because they are related to thinking far ahead with regards to the disability part of it all. I
just want to clarify that that's not entirely correct.
Oh.
MS, it depends what type you have.
Sorry.
If you have the aggressive type, you can be in a wheelchair within like a couple months of getting diagnosed. So just want to clarify.
So I'm partially right then. Is that right?
Yeah. So yeah, that's more of what I'd like to see. Matt?
I'd probably say I really enjoy kind of innovation in the space and people kind of coming up with new and interesting solutions to the various, SDA is still evolving and we're still feeling it out. Everyone in this industry is still feeling it out. So just new solutions and new ways of doing things that perhaps, cross some of the dots that were missing, I guess. So that's what excites me the most, is episodes where we have an opportunity to talk to someone who they've come up with a new idea or they're doing a new company which specialises in a particular thing that's missing in the industry.
Yeah. Eryn, any last thoughts?
No. I feel like we've covered it all, really.
Yeah.
But I would like to see more people ask us to cover things. I feel like we don't really get as many people. Like, we occasionally get people coming in and asking, but I'd like to see more people email. My email is in the description, so I'd like to see more people email and ask for certain topics because we're happy to cover them.
We are. We're always looking for something new to talk about. We don't want to start repeating ourselves, and I'm sure that there will always be lots of subjects and topics to cover. But yeah, we love to get feedback. We love to be given ideas of what to talk about, who to talk about.
Because there is sometimes we do get emails with a lot of questions, and we drag those questions into our podcast to answer them.
Yeah, we do indeed. We recorded an episode the other day answering a bunch of questions from Neil, who had called in and had some really interesting questions. So yeah,
was he happy with the answers?
He was, yeah, indeed. Yeah. So, last thoughts, Min?
I would love to see more builders who are passionate about the NDIS, who come into it to talk to us and learn from our lessons learned as well, and come on our podcast to talk about their expansion into SDA around Australia, and more developers. We're going to be doing a lot more project development work in Melbourne, like Essendon, Caulfield, Mornington, Greensborough, Dandenong, a lot more to go. But we're very keen on new areas, new product providers, new providers, and new regions as well. Yeah. We can explore all those topics there this year.
Great. Okay, then I think that wraps up episode 100. Thank you, team.
Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you are subscribed and following us so you can keep in the loop with all of our upcoming episodes. We would really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating, a written review, and to share this podcast with those that could benefit. Until next time, catch you on the next episode.